We're back again this week, just as schools are set to return and schoolboy rugby will return in part. We have a guest who rose through the ranks, through academies to the highest level of rugby, making his England debut against the All Blacks in 2012 and that famous 38-21 victory, racking up over 250 Premiership appearances for a variety of clubs, and now moving to Japan and the Shoki Shuttles. It is, of course, Freddie Burns. Ladies and gents, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Just trying to make the most of this lockdown period in a bit of limbo. So, just ticking over.
Of course. How have you been sort of keeping busy in lockdown in terms of, I guess, fitness and I guess perhaps any new hobbies that you have?
Well, I'm quite lucky, actually. I had a little outhouse in my house that when I moved in, I turned into a bit of a gym. So I'm quite fortunate that I've got that. I don't use it half as much as I should, but I've got that down there to keep me going. And I've also got like a bag of balls so I can go do my kicking and a bit of passing. And then hobby-wise, I've actually got into a bit of paddleboarding, the old stand-up paddleboarding. So me and my brother bought a couple on Amazon. So sort of in the afternoon, evenings, I'll just go down to the river in Bath and hop on and be on that for an hour or two. It's quite a good little bit of exercise.
Amazing. Sounds like a lockdown dream. So how are the preparations for the move going to Japan?
Yeah, good. It's slow at the minute. Obviously, visas and embassies and borders aren't open, so it's stuck in a little bit of limbo at the minute, which adds a bit of uncertainty and a bit of stress. But you know, we're going through a pandemic, so there's not too much we can do. I'm just trying to, roll with the punches and make sure that I'm ready when it does come. But it's a learning experience. I'm learning stuff about foreign exchange and trying to set up a move to a foreign country, obviously the language and all that sort of stuff. So I got plenty to keep me occupied, but I wouldn't mind a definitive date anytime now.
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of players are sort of clouding this uncertainty and just want sort of a definitive answer of yes or no, or like when's it going to happen and so on.
Yeah.
So So I guess moving on to your club career and talking about rugby. So you started off with Gloucester, you came through the academy system at Bath and moved to Gloucester. What was it like sort of signing your first pro contract? It must have been a dream for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I remember on my 16th birthday, I got a letter through the post inviting me to the Bath academy. So I got into the academy. I did a college course, just a BTEC in sport. And trained, and then managed to play for England under 18s, where a few clubs sort of were interested, and Gloucester and Northampton were those clubs. So I met with both Jim Mallender and Dean Ryan at the time, and I just decided that Gloucester had a history then with Ryan Lamb, Jack Adams, these kind of guys coming through. They were a team that put their faith in the youngsters, and I felt like Bath, they had Butch James at 10 at the time. They were always going to look to bring in a big marquee fly half. So I thought, right, development-wise, I think Gloucester's the place for me. So I went up there a year at Cinderford and then managed to break in at 19 into the Gloucester team.
Wow. So you spent 7 years with Gloucester, and I guess Gloucester have always been a top team. They've always sort of come quite highly in the tables, but they never quite pushed it and won silverware in sort of the knockout rounds. How did this sort of impact the team? Were there lessons to be learned from this, or was it sort of frustrating?
I'll be honest with you, I was probably a little bit naive to it, like as in, because I was so young when I was playing at Gloucester. It was just a joy to like take the field and have a crack every week. And we had, a young backline, guys like Dave Lewis, Johnny May, Henry Trinder, Charlie Sharples, and then we had the experience of guys like Mike Tyndall, Eliota Sapolu, and these guys in the mix as well. So we were ambitious, but we probably knew we were a little bit green. And, I remember we lost the semi-final to Saracens down there, and we felt we should have won. And, it does sting, and you still take performances. But maybe at Gloucester, I learnt that going to Leicester, that Leicester sort of win at all costs. Whereas Gloucester was, you go out and win, we're competitive animals. We have a standard of I guess, there's expectation at the end of the day. The external expectation of what Gloucester should achieve to what Leicester should achieve is a little bit different. Even though the Shed and the Gloucester fans do demand a performance from their team.
Yeah. Did this sort of change in approach, or I guess almost the pressure on did this sort of change how you played as a player?
Yeah, I think when I look back now, I really see the club's kind of fitted in with a time in my career. So like, I look at my Gloucester days, and that was a young team, a great back line, an attacking team that would just go out and have a crack. And if we won, unbelievable. We were the up and coming kids. We were the next best thing. If we lost, it was like, oh, they're still a little bit green, still a little bit inexperienced. So like you almost had that get out of jail free card a little bit when things didn't quite go to plan. And then moving to Leicester, suddenly you've got to grow up because they don't care about performance too much. It was all about results there. And the main goal when I was there was to make sure that I wasn't in the first Leicester team, not to make the top four.
Yeah. As a player, did you have a preference over which sort of style you preferred?
I love both because I think it developed me as a player massively. It
happened at the right time almost.
And like sometimes do I look back and think, those days when it's all new at Gloucester, when I was 19, you're running out of Kingsholm. It was such a quick rise for me into that Gloucester team that those days when like I almost miss absolutely shitting myself before a game. Like I missed that feeling. Like now, don't get me wrong, there's still butterflies and stuff like that, but you've done it so many times. It's like you kind of know what to expect, and you wake up and you look at the weather, and if it's raining, you sort of go in, God, it's gonna be a shit game today. Like we're gonna, there's not gonna be much rugby. Whereas when you were younger, you woke up. It doesn't matter if it was snowing. You were like, I'm a professional rugby player. I'm going to play in front of 15, 16,000 people. Like, let's have it, no matter what. So it just, your mindset changes more than anything.
Mm. So then after Leicester, I guess you moved to Bath. You went back to your hometown. Was this sort of a dream come true? Was this something you always wanted to do, to play for Bath?
Yes and no. Like, it was always a dream growing up to play for Bath. Obviously, I was born in the city. I grew up in the city. I used to jump over the fence and watch Bath play when I was younger. So it was a dream, but like, I was very happy at Leicester. I really enjoyed it. I was playing some of my best rugby my last season at Leicester, and I kind of felt, if I had my way, I probably wouldn't have left. But I felt, I was a little bit pushed, and it was just so that Bath at the time, well, obviously there was the draw of my hometown club, and there was, a few promises, not promises, but saying they wanted to build a team around me and get me down there and stuff like that. And I was like, this would be class. Like, it would be good for me, go home, buy a house, set up for the future a little bit. And then it just kind of didn't quite turn out how I thought it would.
Where do you think it ultimately sort of didn't end up like that? Was there sort of a certain point where you just thought, like, sort of perhaps a certain game or perhaps a certain sort of training session where you thought this is it? Or
no, I think it started off. It started off badly for me, to say. Well, we played that season. Of course, it got fixed that we played Leicester at Leicester, first game of the season, and there was all this whole thing about me and George Ford swapping and stuff like that, and that was an important game to me. Like, everyone knows how important that is. And they put me on the bench. So I was fine. I was gutted, but I went to Bath with a concussion. So I actually had a 3-month stand down from any contact training. So I understood. I couldn't play till the last pre-season game. So I understood being on the bench, and also playing against your old club doesn't give you the right to start. I'm fully aware of that. It's not like, oh, it's Burnsley's old club, like he's got to start. But they put me on the bench, and I was the only unused sub that day. And it meant a lot to me. Even to get on that pitch for 5 minutes would have meant the world to me. And we won the game, but I didn't necessarily, it was a new team. I didn't necessarily feel a part of it straight away. Yeah. So that was tough. And then I had to wait a couple of months for my debut, and ended up getting red carded on debut, which is not how you want it to go. It's quite funny, but I'll be able to write a hell of a book, I reckon. But so that sort of set off on the wrong foot. And then obviously halfway through my Bath time, obviously dropping the ball against Toulouse, I kind of feel like things kind of appeared to me to feel a little bit personal after that. I don't know whether, Bruce Craig is very involved with the club. I don't know whether it was a mistake that he sort of deemed that I'd never play for the club again, per se. I don't really know, but kind of felt after that the trust had gone from the coaches and they didn't really have much interest in giving me a shot after that.
It's quite interesting because I guess you mentioned the red card and you mentioned dropping the ball. These are sort of perhaps like split second things in terms it happens in seconds, but it sort of had a big impact on your career, as opposed to it wasn't sort of a mindset that you had, like a training mindset, or sort of a lack of enthusiasm, which you definitely didn't have. It was sort of these split second things. Did you think it was sort of unfair perhaps, or?
Not. I felt I do feel the lack of opportunity at Bath, especially this year. You know, I ended the season well last year, starting at 10, and then this year I didn't get one start at 10 in the Premiership this year. Even when we were playing poorly or not performing, it was frustrating. So I do feel hard done by in that sense. But in terms of the mistakes themselves, yeah, like they were split second things, and you know, shit happens at the end of the day. Like, do you know what I mean? I'd never wanted to be that guy who dropped the ball. Like, does it still hurt now? Of course it does. But am I going to let it ruin me and be, you know, it's funny now, I'll go and do a Q&A, or I'll do, and the first thing people want to talk about is that drop ball. And, you know, I scored 20 odd points in that game. You know, if it was me, I could argue that we wouldn't have even been in the game if I wouldn't play it, like, so, or my performance. So, you know, inevitably I lost the game for Bath, but you know, for 75 minutes of that game, I played pretty fucking well.
Yeah,
it's just like say a split second thing, and that's the thing with sport, and that's why you got to be thick-skinned, because you know, people are going to say, you know, that you shouldn't play again and all this stuff and question your mentality. My mentality was fine. I made a mistake. You know, you see thousands of players punch the air and celebrate before putting the ball down. It just so happened that Maxime Adar was behind me. So it's tough to take, but at the same time, it's one of those things that it doesn't define me. I've played too many games to let a split second thing like that ruin my career. So, you know, I just try and move on.
How did sort of the squad members and your other teammates react to it? Were they sort of, did they have the same approach as you, or were they a bit more sort of, maybe not hostile, but sort of thought a bit frustrated perhaps?
Yeah, cool. And I think at the time as well, you know, a few lads come up and sort of put an arm around me, and you know, it's hard because as soon as the final whistle goes, you know, the cameras are straight in your face and you know exactly what they're talking about. And it's, I put a social media post out there a couple of months ago about the fact that, you know, you'd expect the rugby guy in the middle of a rugby field to never feel lonely. And I've never felt more lonely than I did in that situation there, because, you know, the whole world's looking at you. And I'm normally one of the first to go around and clap the crowd, but just the emotion got too much. So I had to get in the change room and just get out of the firing line and the light that I put myself in. And Jamie Roberts came up to me and said, mate, don't let it get to you, because, you know, the boys enjoy you when you're upbeat and you're yourself, you're a bit of a joker and stuff like that. They don't want to see you down and that. So I got home, I had an evening sort of sulking, and then on the Sunday I texted Todd Blackadder and was just like, look, like I'm sorry for what happened. Tomorrow I'm going to come in, I'm going to try and be my usual upbeat self, but I don't want you to take that as me not caring. And I kind of just use humour to get myself through it, take the piss out of myself. And then on the Tuesday, actually, I broke through in trading and ended up scoring under the post, and all the boys were shouting, put it down. And it was raining, so I slid on my belly, and then all the boys come in, sliding in behind me and celebrating. So, yeah, they were great. At the end of the day, I fucked up. You know, you need to take responsibility for that. It would have been fake if all the boys were not bothered about it. I almost wanted them to be bothered, and that was my fuel for the next week at Wasps away to bounce back and put in a performance for them.
Sounds like you approached it sort of really well and sort of took it very well. So I guess I want to move on and talk about your international career. So you start off with England under-20s in the World Championships. What was that like, I guess, touring for your country at such a young age? Because I guess you talked about moving to Gloucester as a 19-year-old, being fresh, loving everything, whether it's snowing, raining, sunny. Was that a similar feeling at the under-20s?
Yeah, it was amazing. Even going back to England 18s, I toured Argentina with them as well, which was class. But at 18, obviously, you're a little bit more restricted on what you can and can't do. But yeah, our under-20s World Cup was based in Rosario, and the Argentinians supported it unbelievably well. We had a great group, both in our World Cup group and also in with the bunch of players that we had. And yeah, we let rip really. We'd play, we'd have a day off the next day, so we'd play, and then a few of us would go out and let rip in Rosario, which was class. And at that age, everything's ahead of you, everything's exciting. You're 19, 20 years old, whatever you are, and you're in Argentina on a trip that's all paid for, having steak for breakfast and going out and playing against some world-class players and teams. So yeah, it's a great time. I think a lot of pressure gets put. It's a great stepping stone, the under-20s. One thing I would say, I don't think that age group stuff is the be-all and end-all of players making it. You hear some boys thinking that if just because they didn't make England under-20s or England 18s or England 16s, whatever it is, that they haven't got a chance of making it. And it's not quite that, but it's definitely, when you get to the under-20s, a huge stepping stone and a great platform to be on.
Also gives you a lot of experience of what it's like, almost having that sort of professional flavour and sort of touring and sort of being with a set of, I guess, representing your country and that pressure.
Yeah, no, I think definitely. I think we had a great group of lads and a good coaching setup that let boys enjoy themselves as well. So it was, we enjoyed the experience of being in Argentina. I've been on some tours where I toured New Zealand with England in 2014, and because of what happened at the World Cup 4 years before and the name that England got, we were under a lot stricter. I say regime, that's probably a bit harsh, but just a bit stricter rules on what we can and can't do. So you end up not really seeing a great deal of the country, which is a shame. But no, those under-20s days, we got out. You met the locals. You went out for drinks, party till the early hours. It was good fun.
How does that sort of difference in sort of structure and sort of restricting it, sort of, how does that sort of impact the players in terms of playing ability? Would you say one sort of helps you sort of be a bit more sort of perhaps creative on the field because you feel you've got a bit more room to work with?
Yeah, you want freedom and you want some responsibility. I think that's the main thing is, as players, especially now, like coaches know that they can't really tell you what to do. It's down to your individual self and your teammates to all look after each other, and that can result. Sometimes you're not too far away from trouble. You hear sort of Mike Brown, Ben Tier having a bust up, and sometimes people just have a couple to drink and they don't get on. So there's always going to be friction in places you go and stuff like that. But where you can, you've got to dodge it a little bit, but also just make sure that you react well when it does happen. And that's the main thing. You just got to look after each other. I remember Gloucester days with Leslie Vonicolo. Like, he was an absolute beast and a legend on the drink, and everyone loved him. But he'd be behind bars quicker than, in 5 minutes he'd be behind the bar serving drinks.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, we probably shouldn't let him do it. But then he wasn't causing any trouble. The bar staff were like laughing and in on it and stuff like that. And it was, we could get away with it. But that was just before social media really got big. So I'm not too sure now if there's pictures of, I don't know, a big name player behind a bar serving drinks at 1 o'clock in the morning. It probably wouldn't go down too well.
Of course. And then I guess you made your senior debut against the All Blacks, which for many England fans is sort of the greatest match that many can remember. So 38-21 in 2012. It was played against a wonderful team, played with a wonderful team as well. What was it like, I guess, making your debut against the All Blacks? Because surely that's sort of the most extreme you can get to.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I'm gutted England beat them in the World Cup, because I've been dining out on being the only England team to beat New Zealand for the last time. Suddenly it's not as important now. But no, it was amazing. I was in a good bit of form for Gloucester at the time, and then I actually wasn't in the England squad. And I've said this story before, but I went out on the piss in Cheltenham after a game on a Saturday and woke up very hungover on the Sunday from a phone call from Stuart Lancaster, who said that Toby Flood had picked up an ankle injury. and that if he's having a scan today, and if it doesn't come good, that I'll be on the bench against the All Blacks. So I've smashed in a bit of toast, splashed a bit of water on my face, and driven up to Penny Hill Park. And yeah, Freddie wasn't good, so I spent the week knowing that I was going to be on the bench. It was a weird, like I don't actually remember too much about the week other than just being like unbelievably excited and shitting myself. And then you get like, presented your shirt the night before, and suddenly you're in your hotel room on your own, and on the back of your chair in the corner is just an England shirt with your name on it, and you're thinking, fucking hell, like what is going on? Like I was 22 at the time, I think, so it was like mental. And then the day getting up, I think I managed like half a pancake before, like the morning of. I couldn't eat, and then you get on the bus and that drive to Twickenham. You got the police escort. Every car you pass is an England flag. Every pub you pass is rammed. And yeah, it was amazing. And then to face the hacker, watch the boys go out and Manu run riot, and Faz kick his goals. And then with, I think, about 18, 20 minutes to go, Mike Catt looks at me, he's like, Fred, you're on. And I'm thinking, shit. And yeah, just managed to go on, kick a couple of goals. And like you say, that was one of the best New Zealand teams, or one of the best sports teams that's ever lived. So to have beat them with that team was just unbelievable. And yeah, I probably should have retired from international rugby after that day, really.
Of course. So was there like...
Was there much of an initiation process before? So with the squad, did you have to do anything? We've had some quite funny stories from previous people.
Yeah, so the initiation afterwards is a drink with every player and every staff member. So
I can imagine after being the All Blacks, that was a lot of drinks.
Oh, so like we're in the showers, and we're boys are lobbing bottles, and one of them's hitting them with his dick and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Just like it's loose as it can be. And then all I remember actually is I completely forgot about the cap ceremony. So then, like, boys are piling me with drinks, and I'm absolutely shit-faced, and they're doing the speeches, and I'm like sat there hammered. I can hardly speak, whatever. Next thing you know, the president of the RFU or whatever is like, oh, we'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome Freddie Burns up on stage to collect his cap. And I'm like trying to walk through the tables, like elbowing people, like struggling, giving my cap. And as I'm walking back, Dan Carter stops and sort of shakes my hand and has a few words and stuff. And I'm just like, and like, when you're trying to talk to someone, trying to concentrate, but you're just sort of like swaying. That's all I was doing. And then I sang on the bus on the way home, and the rest is history. I just woke up on the bedroom floor of on the heated floor of my bathroom at Penny Hill Park with a little pile of sick cooking next to me.
What do you sing?
I sang Don McLean, American Pie.
Oh, classic.
which actually, I must say the story, which a year later, we toured Argentina with England, and we weren't really allowed out and stuff like that, and we managed to blag a night out. And Stuart Lancaster took us to a karaoke bar, staff and players, and Ben Foden's got up and sang, Paul Doran-Jones has got up and sang, and all that stuff. They've called me up to sing, and Richard Wigglesworth looked at me and gone, mate, I dare you to call up Stuart Lancaster afterwards. I dare you to call up Lanny to sing, right? So I've sang, I sang something else, and I've sang, and I've just started going, Lanny, Lanny, like this. He didn't want to get up. He's got up to sing, right? He's picked Don McLean, American Pie, but the one that's got a 4-minute instrumental in it. Oh. So he's had to sing and then stand on stage for 4 minutes, dying before finishing. Yeah, I don't think... how I got capped for England again after that, I never know, but he hated me that night.
So I guess, so you're moving to Japan next. We briefly touched on it before. So I guess you spoke about how you like the quicker game, how you want to show your attacking flair and sort of present your attacking sort of skill set. Are you excited to move to Japan? What are sort of the new opportunities that you think you'll come across?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Obviously, it's a little bit daunting as well, going out to a foreign country where the language and the culture is vastly different. See a lot of boys go to France and stuff like that, but culture's quite similar. You can pick up the language pretty easy, but it's a huge experience to gain life experience. And rugby wise, I think I want to go out there and attack and show that. But also, you get a lot of Islanders over there. You get a lot of, the Southern Hemisphere boys over there. So it's not going to be a case of going over there and just throwing the ball about. So I'm really excited of the challenge. And, after 10 years in the Premiership, I just felt like the time was right just to get a little bit more experience, play against a different group of players, and just see what really happens with it.
Did the Rugby World Cup have an effect on your decision of where to go, having seen how much they love the game in the November?
Yeah, a little bit. It definitely made it easier. Obviously, seeing what they did with the World Cup definitely made it easier. But yeah, I just think it's a great country. It's a developing rugby country as well, which is exciting. So the team I'm going to they've just been promoted from the second division up to the top league. So it's going to be tough, and it's going to be a team that hopefully I can get in and help develop, and bring a couple of young, exciting Japanese players forward a little bit, and try and help in that sense as well. So it's it's going to be an experience. I don't really know exactly 100% what I'm getting into, but I guess we'll just get on a plane when I can and find out.
Of course. Well, I guess recently, as you're leaving, you sort of talked about sort of the return of the Premiership and sort of the dates. You've mentioned how in 28 days, it seems absurd that some teams are going to have to play 7 games. That's on average 4 days between each game. Do you mind if you elaborate quickly on sort of the effect that this is going to have on the players?
Yeah, I think it's completely ridiculous. I think talk about player welfare. You talk about, you look at France. I believe, I might not be 100% of this, but I believe the French league just canned this league off, and then they're starting again in September. There's got to be compromise. People are going to have to do. We want rugby to succeed and still be around in a year or two's time. You don't want to see these great clubs sort of go under. But at the same time, there's got to be compromise from both ends of the scale, and I don't feel like there is. I feel like players have been asked to put their bodies under more stress, play more games in a shorter period of time, on less money. I saw an interview the other day. I didn't read it all, but I think Alex Reader did an interview about him. He reckons he's going to need a knee op in his late 30s because his knees are shot. That's the kind of thing that people don't see. People see you play on a Saturday, but it's like, boys are going to be fucked in years to come. If they're not fucked now, they'll be. It's just this whole player welfare, and you see people shout it around, and boys are being cornered into signing contracts because they have to, and it's just a horrible position to be in as a player. And I feel like they're sacrificing both their salary and their health in trying to do this schedule, which is ridiculous.
So just before we wrap up, we've got one question which we ask every guest when they come on. We ask for their favourite moment in their careers. I mean, I'm going to guess yours is probably going to be your debut, but is there anything else which really stuck out for you as a highlight? Yeah,
I've actually got. It's really hard. I've actually got 3. Obviously, the England debut is one. That's great. My last game for Leicester at home at Welford Road was huge, because I remember we played Sale, and I scored that day, which was unbelievable, and I was just filled with emotion because of how it happened. And they took me off with about 10 minutes to go, and I got a sort of a standing ovation from Welford Road, and they all sort of chanted my name and stuff, and it was just kind of like one of those things where it was just a great sense of appreciation that I felt from the supporters, which was amazing. But for me, I think the one that tops them all is I made my last ever game for Gloucester. Henry Trinder went down in the warm-up, so my little brother ended up coming on starting the game at 10, and I moved to 12. So to play with my little brother in a Premiership game, and also it was his first Premiership start, so it was like a special occasion for him. And I think we're 2 normal lads. Do you know what I mean? We're not sort of privately educated boys, or do you know what I mean? We're not from your typical rugby background, and we've not sort of had any help getting up through the ranks. So to be 2 alongside each other was was an amazing moment and a hell of a piss up afterwards.
Sure. Well, Freddie, I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It was really fascinating hearing, I guess, sort of the players' views and sort of hearing sort of the stories and sort of what each player goes through when they play an international game, a club game, their first game, and many other games. It was it was really interesting. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, lads. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And all the best of it.
Yeah,
All right?
thank
Let
you
me
so
know
much,
if I can
Freddie.
help out anyway. But just just message me or whatever, and we'll sort it out.
Of course. Thank you.
Legends.
Will do, and good luck in Japan.
Take care. All right. Thank
Cheers.
you. All the best. See ya.
Come on!